Well, my ministry, my Reacher, my Superman, my Zack Snyder people. What can I say about ministry? Well, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't as great as I wanted it to be or expected. So, is it a big disappointment? No. In fact, I would say, I know I'm going to shock people, this is technically a little bit stronger than even Dune Part 2, but I would have to be honest and say if you had the money and very little money, you still want to pay for Dune Part 2 because it is much more cinematic than this. So you get more bang for the buck with Dune Part 2. This is no joke. I think Guy Ritchie did his thing, but this is surprisingly kind of boring and too calm in too many places. It is constrained. And I understand what Guy Ritchie is up to, that he's always been accused of being a Quentin Tarantino clone. This is not going to help. So you can tell he's trying to change the rhythm, he's trying to experiment with editing. He's not trying to just replicate Quentin, but you can't lie. This is very much the mark of the Bastards. And although I'm critical of Quentin, I would have to agree, yes, The Inglorious is probably one of Quentin Tarantino's best films. It is a very, very good film, and it's much more complex and thoughtful than people might think. There's actually some good scholarship and criticism that Quentin is working at various levels, but this one just felt like it's trying to be deep, trying to do something philosophical or historic or something, and it just doesn't come together. That said, there are still amazing scenes, especially with, yes, Mr. Reacher and Mr. Superman together. It's very fun for the most part, but there were places where things just dragged. Some of the plot twists were really not necessary. And again, this is based on a true story, and there's some fascinating things, but I don't want to oversell it. So, for instance, again, this is no spoilers, but yes, James Bond in a certain way does appear for a few scenes. If you know what I'm saying, you'll know what I mean. And that was a nice little touch. And it is true. Yes, Ian Fleming, in fact, Aleister Crowley, there were a lot of weird people mixed up in World War II. Satanists, black magicians, and spy novelists. However, those are nice touches. Those are technically accurate. They add a little bit of flavor to this, but at the end of the day, this felt like it needed to be pumped up by a few more notches. That said, it is a fine film. It's very entertaining for the most part. I will give this a 7.5. I do recommend it if you do have the money. But if you don't have the money, I would still say Dune Part 2 and even The First Omen are slightly stronger overall. They may not be rating wise. I think rating wise, this is actually a better film, but I would say those films made more of an effort to be genuinely cinematic. This one feels like Guy Ritchie's a little too scared to just imitate Quentin, but he hasn't really found his own voice yet, which is kind of depressing given he's had decades to try. But yeah, he's a Quentin boy. So I think he should have embraced it more here and just not be ashamed of being the Quentin guy. Not everyone can be Kubrick. Not everyone should be Kubrick. Sometimes just being a guy is okay. So this is above okay, but it is just above okay.